It's 108 at News Talk 1010. Springtime, spring cleaning. For most people, spring cleaning means, cleaning out your cupboards, maybe cleaning out your drawer, you get your socks all straightened out and all that kind of stuff. But who cares enough about financial spring cleaning? Well, I'll tell you who. Jane Blaufus does, and she joins us now on the line. Hello, Jane.
Hello, Ted. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. When I first looked at this, I thought, okay, well, yeah, I mean, you're just cleaning up an office space, and I went, no, there's way more involved in this.
There definitely is.
It's one of those things. It's like when you ever try to find, you buy a product and it's under warranty, and then like a month or a year and a half later, something goes wrong, and then you spend like 3 days looking for the warranty because it's not organized.
Yep.
And that's pretty much what we're talking about here, but not just warranty, but important papers.
Yes, very important papers. Very important papers. Unfortunately, this is not usually top of mind with people. This is a job that they like to push to the back of the drawer and hope they never find it again. But it's really, really critical that when we're looking at, spring cleaning, that we think about our finances as well, because it's too late if something happens.
Right. And you talk about that everything that needs to be discussed with your partner and family has been. Make sure that you have done that. That's not spring cleaning the way we imagine it, but that's a very important element.
Well, it's all about having courageous conversations with your family, because if you don't and something happens, one, you put them in a really bad position. They're already, they could be grieving, there could be somebody sick, and all of a sudden, like you said, they're trying to find papers that they tucked away 3 years ago, and now they don't know where they are when they most need them.
Mm-hmm. So let's go through your 7 easy steps here.
Okay, so the first one, as you alluded to, is just make sure that you have have the discussions with your partner and your family, because if you don't, you really put them in a bad position if something happens, as I mentioned. The second one is get all of your information and your documents together and put them in one central location. Itemize things, make sure your life insurance policies, your house insurance, your disability insurance, if you've pre-planned your funeral, that's in there. All the important documents, your auto insurance, your social insurance, your birth certificate. But most importantly, tell somebody where it is. Don't just put it together and tuck it in a drawer. Tell somebody where it is. The third one is make sure that if you're, cohabitating or you're married or whatever, make sure you put both partners' names on all of the household bills.
Yeah, and I saw that, and I thought, don't mean to interrupt you, but I saw that, and I thought, well, if you don't have that, it's not like, the gas company is going to refuse payment on someone else's check.
Oh, yes, they will.
They will?
Yep. My first husband passed away, and I wasn't on all of the household accounts. And when I tried to go and clear them off and pay them and whatever, I couldn't until I produced a death certificate.
Wow.
So, it sounds kind of weird, and most people will go, well, how come that's a top 7? Well, believe me, when you're in that position, it's a top 7. So it's just something to think about. And you need to, number 4 is make sure you've had a conversation with the person that you've chosen as your executor. So often people just think, oh, you know what, if something happens to me, my sister will do it, my brother, somebody will take it over, no problem. But it doesn't always happen that way, because there's a lot of responsibility that goes with being an executor, so you must have a conversation with someone and literally ask them to accept the role.
Yeah, and here's another, we do a whole conversation just on this, is how do you make that decision who an executor should be? Is it a wise move to make one of your children an executive?
Well, it depends. You think about it. If you were to pass away, Ted, and you've left one of your children, what if they're grieving so desperately from the loss of you that they're incapable of making decisions?
Well, I'm not worrying about that.
Oh, come on. I'm sure that they're really going to be grieving. But, no, you really have to think about it. And I think the most important thing is, back to my comment, have a conversation with somebody, because you'll find out if that person is really the person you want as an executor, often based just off that conversation.
Right, and speaking of children, if your kids are underage, you need to do some things.
Oh, yeah, a legal guardian is an absolute definite, because the problem is if you don't appoint a legal guardian and something happens, your children could end up in the care of somebody that you would not let near them within 100 feet if you were still alive. So this is something that's often a very, very difficult discussion. I have a friend who had been trying for 6 years to come to a conclusion on a guardian with her husband, and after reading my book, they had the decision made in 2 weeks, and the interesting thing was it was not the person they thought it was going to be.
Really?
So it can often be a very it can sometimes be a battle between a couple, but it's better that the parents battle it out before then the kids end up afterwards as a ward of the court or go somewhere that, it breaks up the family or whatever.
And the last 2 points.
Well, you've got to have an up-to-date will. I hear a lot of people say, oh, lawyers are so expensive, this, that, and the other. They're not. They're worth their weight in gold because there's so many repercussions if you don't have a proper will in place, and you've got to renew it from a financial and health matter. Like, think about things like living wills, power of attorney, and all of that kind of stuff. In 27 years, Ted, in the financial services industry, I have seen more things that could have been avoided just by somebody maybe spending $300, but instead they've lost, $300,000 just because they didn't want to fork out the $3.
Wow.
And then the last one, number 7, is make sure that your life insurance, your critical illness insurance, disability, all of those kinds of insurance is adequate to meet today's needs. You cannot just buy a life insurance policy, stick it in a drawer, and pull it out 5 or 10 years later. Things change. Life moves on. Expenses get higher. You make more money, etc. There are 6 words in the English language that always make the hair on the back of my neck stand up after I hear somebody's passed away, and they are a trust fund has been created. To me, that's code for there wasn't any life insurance or there wasn't enough.
Wow.
And critical illness, we're all going to die someday, that's a given, but there's other things that can happen in between. You could end up becoming critically ill. Well, then how do you trigger some money that can help you? Or maybe your spouse, who might be your caregiver, who wants to take time off work to stay home with you. You can't just lose 2 incomes. So, people think life insurance and all of these insurance premiums sometimes are things that, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much I'm paying a month. Believe me, if they're ever triggered, they're priceless.
Well, and it's surprising how many people don't have long-term disability.
Long-term disability or even also long-term care.
Yeah. Okay, this has been great stuff, Jane. I appreciate that. You got a website where we can send people, because I know that people were going to be calling us and saying, where do I find that information? Okay,
they're invited to join me on my website at Jane Blaufus, JaneBlaufus.com. They can find more about this and more about the book.
Okay, we're going to put a link on my website here at News Talk 1010, and I thank you very much and have a pleasant afternoon.
Okay, you too. Thanks a lot, Ted. It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye. That's Jane Blaufus. She raises some really interesting points, and when I first saw this again, I thought, well, spring cleaning, clean out your den or your office at home. No, a lot of important points there.